Hi, my name is Francis Runzel, and I help people who feel stuck in a relationship get clarity on whether to stay or leave in under 2 sessions without having to dig up the entire past, without having to re traumatize oneself, or feeling like the bad guy. So, how can you do that today on your own? So, I work primarily with people in intimate relationships that are experiencing conflict, and I'm very drawn to help people that feel stuck because I've been there. I've had friends that have been there. I'm sure you've had friends or have been there yourself, and it just kind of sucks. Like, you can see their heart, you can see what they are capable of, you can see the potential they have, and a good friend generally will like nudge and be like, hey, like, this isn't for you, you know? Like, since you've been in this relationship, like, your light has dimmed, right? So that's why I work specifically with people who feel stuck. Um, I find a lot of value in it, and so I'd like to help you today if you're feeling that way. To begin with, I want to share that it's natural, right? When we're stuck in a relationship, what does that mean, right? It implies that we want to leave, and we're not. We're stuck. We don't know how to get out. And one of the biggest patterns that people do in this relation, and when they're stuck like this, is they flip flop between a pros and cons list. Pros of why to stay, cons of why not, or cons of staying too. And both sides, like, what are the pros of leaving, the cons of leaving? It creates like a matrix. It highlights two important things, two aspects of ourself. So when you were born, humans are amazing. We're the most flexible and adaptable, and that's why when it comes to the survival of the fittest means most adaptable, most flexible, and humans are that. When we are born, we are a blank slate. Like any other animal could be born in the wild, and it already has innate instincts to survive in the environment. Humans don't have that, but we're still wired that way. And so this highlights I guess, the origin of conflict and where it arises. So when you're born, there's a part of you that's wired for thriving and alignment. This is the part of you when a person says, like, be all that you can be the person you're meant to be, live up to your full potential. They're pointing their finger towards this. The part of you that is an individual expression, has a mission, has a soul, has a spirit, has something unique to bring to the world, right? And then you've got the part of you that's wired for survival and engaging in the environment, things outside of you. So this is where conflict arises. Right when you're born, we're constantly pulled between being aligned, our authentic, unique expression, and doing what we need to do in order to survive. And everyone's has this experience where they've done things in order to survive that didn't feel good because they felt like they were compromising themselves in some way. So this is intrinsic to who we are. When a person, if you're feeling stuck in a relationship and you're going to the pros and the cons list, what is really happening behind the list is part of you is sharing what's important to it, thriving in alignment, and another part of you is sharing what's important to it, which is survival. Like surviving, making it, And there's a lot of different pieces that kind of like weave together in this. I want to keep it simple, but I'm also going to give tidbits of like how this weaves into other pieces, principles, dynamics, so you can explore on your own. The intention of this video is to help you to begin to get the clarity. The first thing is you already have it. You've had it since you were born. You have a way to listen to and access these different parts of you. What it would look like when you're thriving in alignment, what it would look like when you're surviving, right? And I kind of illustrate this like when you were first born, being a blank slate. The first thing you do is you take your unconscious, okay, is amazing. Humans are amazing. Your unconscious can process trillions of bits of information simultaneously, where your conscious mind can only process like 40 bits. So your unconscious can process millions of times more information, maybe even billions more information than your conscious mind. When you're born, what you're doing is you're downloading the environment, but specifically like the rules of the game, right? When it comes to family dynamics and relationships, there's rules, either spoken or unspoken. And each of them, there's a flip-flop, right? Like a spoken rule has all sorts of unspoken rules around it. And same with unspoken rules. Unspoken rules have all sorts of spoken rules around it. And it can kind of be confusing for your conscious mind, but your unconscious gets it. And it signals to you different messages on how to navigate that. So I want to take a step back. I don't think in terms of right or wrong. And I know that's crazy. I'm not saying that I condone everything. I'm not saying that like it's okay to do whatever you want. What I mean is, if you're like me, growing up, I was taught that certain emotions are bad, are wrong, right? And that's what I mean, is emotions are messages. If I were to now judge that emotion, that's something else I'm adding to the mix, and it invites in moral superiority. And that's why we see so much conflict in the world these days on social media, is because of right and wrong and moral superiority. The thing is, everyone has a different like value hierarchy. Like some people value honesty more than anything else. That sounds good on paper until that person is overly blunt when they're being honest. And some people, they value getting along better or more than everything. And so they will tell little white lies and sweep stuff under the rug in order to have harmony at the cost of honesty, right? So both sound good on paper. Like, who wouldn't want someone who values honesty? Who wouldn't want to be someone who values like getting along, harmony? Until you see the dark side of it, what values they're willing to like compromise in order to fulfill what they value most. And at that point, who can say who is right or wrong, right? This is where like ethical dilemmas come from, where it turns into a gray zone. All of that is not helpful. Why? That's kind of the whole point of this video. Because deep down, we're all unique. We all have this unique voice inside where things feel aligned. So when we're making sense of stuff logically like that, we're just adding extra steps to something that's already natural. Going back to your unconscious when you were born, these parts of you have been communicating with you since you were born. So that clarity that you're looking for is already inside of you. And more often than not, people had glimpses of it and they either took it for granted, downplayed it, outright ignored it. And how many people do you know, maybe you've done this yourself, when the relationship ends, whomever decides to initiate it, they think to themselves, or they say, man, like those red flags were there from the beginning. I had a gut feeling about this and I ignored it and stepped into it anyway. And here I am now 5 years later having to deal with this crap. Like I knew the whole time, because your unconscious has been communicating with you the whole time. So the first step is to get back to listening to what's easy and natural, your unconscious emotions. So if you would like to have clarity, whether to leave or to stay, the first thing you can do is to set aside time each day to just journal. Free journal. Journal what you're feeling. how it feels, right? Like I'm feeling like a tightness in my chest. It's kind of like, I don't know, like a hand gripping, right? Or feels like it's pulsating, feels like a slow squeeze, right? Really write it out without trying to make sense of it. What thoughts are popping into your mind? Where do you notice your awareness going? Journal for like 5 minutes to start small, start simply, and journal what you're currently experiencing without trying to make sense of it. And an interesting thing happens. When you don't try to make sense of it, things click. It makes sense. But what's interesting is it makes more sense than if you tried to make sense of it. I know it's counterintuitive. I know it doesn't make sense. But this is the first step that I share with all my clients, is to begin to start listening to those messages and insight and clarity you already have inside that's already been being communicated to you. And the more you do that, the easier it is to receive, the easier it is to listen to it, to hear it, and the more powerful it becomes because the more respect you have for it. And it gets to a point where it's like your friend, right? Like some people, they have this friend, like when they're in a shitty situation, they reach out to someone and they're like, hey, like this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm going through, what's your advice? And their friend just bluntly says this, and they respect their friend because their friend sees things that they don't see. They've given them insight and feedback before it's played out, and they're like, yeah, that was a hard truth that I was trying to avoid. Thank you for being honest with me, sharing your perspective. You're right. It'll be that kind of respect. The respect you have for a good friend who's given you good advice in the past. Because really, your unconscious has. It's just, as a society, we're trained not to appreciate it. And if we don't have the best relationship with ourselves, it's easy to downplay. So, this simple exercise will not only help you get clarity in conflict in relationships, but it expands outward into so many amazing things in your life. When you tap into listening, does that make sense? So to kind of clarify, first and foremost, you already have the clarity that you're looking for inside. It's already communicated to you. In fact, that's where a lot of resentment comes, is like you have that nudge, like you know better. The part of you that's wired for thriving in alignment, it compromises itself for, avoiding conflict or like not wanting to rock the boat, sweeping things under the rug. You feel that resentment inside doesn't feel good because you compromised yourself, and that resentment builds, and at some point it gets pasted on the other person. Because the more times you compromise yourself for the sake of the other person or the relationship or survival, the more times you feel crappy for compromising yourself. And then it starts feeling like that person's making you feel this way, when all along it was you not listening to messages and insight and clarity you've had all along, right? So this simple process actually helps unravel and heal so many unhealthy patterns and experiences that people have in life, even if they're not in a relationship where they feel stuck. But I choose to focus specifically on people that are stuck in relationships because, if you're like me, you've seen a lot of people stuck. You can see that they're not as bright as they used to be. You can see that they're not fulfilling their unique expression of who they are as a person, how they had in the past. You can see that the relationship's draining. And you can see that they're looking for that reason to get out of it. And that reason's been here all along. So what does this look like moving forward? So kind of the framework, I want to take a step back. So you're unconscious. It's been with you since the beginning. It's always been communicating in these ways. To avoid building resentment towards yourself, journaling, listening, establishing that connection, building that relationship with yourself. That's first and foremost. Then what I do is I help clients learn what are called like self-regulation tools, but state control. It's another way to engage with your unconscious, because you're engaged. If you think about it, you're not actually making yourself feel a certain way, right? You can set an intention and your unconscious responds, right? Like that's how meditation works. That's how anything works, right? When I think about, I can set an intention to lift my hand, but did I move every single muscle and like make my hand that way? My unconscious did that. You set an intention and your unconscious responds. So when it comes to state control, you learn how to set an intention and shift the state you're in to one of relaxation. You shift out of survival mode and into one of thriving, alignment, calm, clarity, right? And that's the next piece. So now you're developing other areas of your relationship with your unconscious. It gets to a point where no matter what's going on around you, you can shift your state and be resolute. So another person, because without that, what happens is another person's in a state, they're angry, and it can be easy to take on other people's emotions, right? And either you've had this experience or you know a person that's like a highly sensitive person, right? Like where they have so much empathy that they feel themselves taking on too much of another person's burden or experience. I shouldn't say burden. By practicing state control, you can be resolute. So you can empathize, be compassionate, have sympathy even, without having to take on that person's stuff. And this is perfect for navigating difficult conversations. Because if a person that you're communicating with winds up getting defensive, then you don't take it personally and you don't get defensive yourself. You stay calm, you stay centered, and you can stay the course. You can communicate what needs to be communicated, and you can receive what needs to be communicated because you're operating out of here, not out of here. Does this make sense? There's a lot that's going on. If a person shifts your state and they shift you into this, it can be harder to listen to these messages, ones coming from thriving alignment. So state control is really important for that. I will make videos on this, but if you'd like, you can always explore self-regulation tools, state control on your own time until I create those videos. The next piece is practicing nonviolent communication. And I always have clients practice that with themselves first in like a journal. Why? Because when we're learning a new skill, right, it's kind of like swimming. You don't just dive off the highest diving board into the deepest part of the pool. You start in the shallow end. So by practicing nonviolent communication with yourself first, you make it easy. And you make it easy to stay, and now you have practiced staying resolute and calm. And you're also making it easy to learn this new tool. So it's like a positive feedback loop. You're setting it all up in your favor to get the best results as quickly as possible, even if it feels like, so this is what's kind of interesting. It's the whole idea like slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And a lot of people want to rush and change quick. And it's an interesting phenomenon is like the more a person pushes and the quicker they want to go, usually the slower they end up being. Does that make sense? So this might sound like slow and methodical. It's actually the fastest path to get what you want. I know it's counterintuitive, and that's why we work with the unconscious, not the conscious mind, not logic. Does that make sense? So you practice nonviolent communication with yourself, you get used to it, you start uncovering your deeper needs, ones that have been being communicated through sensations or nudges or whatever it is, impulses, gut feelings, and you start to get to the message behind the message. You make sense of it consciously, like, oh, so anger wanted me to do this, or anger wanted me to be safe, or anger wanted me to respect myself and my boundary and establish it. Got it. You're starting to listen to the messages and get more out of it. So now you're transforming sensations and nudges, right? Like that person before who had that gut instinct that knew about the red flags. If they took time to practice nonviolent communication and get to the deeper need and got that from themselves, they'd be like, oh, so the reason I'm feeling this way about what seems like to be a red flag is because my unconscious wants me to be authentically myself, wants me to focus on those things where I feel aligned, where I'm thriving, and this current dynamic is going to get in the way of that. Cool. This leads to the fourth step. When you have practice, you're getting the clarity, you're getting the messages, you're transforming them into words, you can manage your state. Now you communicate with your partner and you can share this with them. And because you've done all the work before, you can share it in a way where they don't get defensive, where you're not blaming or accusing them. And it's more about like a cooperation, like how can we do this? Instead of you versus them, it's you and them versus the problem. Make sense? That's kind of like the roadmap, the general roadmap. I would say like the first couple of sessions, this is what we focus on. And then the rest is really like nuance, specifics. Like, okay, sometimes things from the past come up. Sometimes people need that deeper healing. And it all comes down to your intentions, what you'd like to achieve, what's coming up for you. First and foremost though, all of this is designed for you to have a relationship with your unconscious, connect with the clarity you've always had, and respect it like you would a really good friend who doesn't bullshit you. Make sense? If you watched it this far, thank you. I'm glad that you found this interesting, or that you found something of value in it. It would mean the world to me if you happen to have thought of someone in your life that could benefit from this, that might find this interesting as well. If you could share that with them, that would be amazing. Because at the root, I think there's a lot of sensationalized crap out there that just it's like too much. I think there's a lot of like blame game stuff, like attacking other people and just getting caught in dysfunction. And it feels good to vent and to like be in the comment sections and calling out whoever's in the video. It's not helpful. So I take a different approach. This is all designed for your betterment, for everyone's betterment, for, I guess, raising humanity's consciousness, but more importantly, to help you, help whomever, connect with your inner power, your unconscious, the authentic, aligned part of you that's wired for thriving, that's always been a part of you, and that's been nudging you the whole way. That's the intention of these videos. If you know someone that would be interested in this, who would like to fulfill their potential, but to do it in a way that doesn't feel bad or feel like they're missing the mark, where it's natural, easy, step by step, please share this video with them. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.